Can Keyonte George look at Jamal Murray's career and see a path? And can we look at Jamal Murray's career and see something that makes us feel all right about Keyonte George's rookie year slumps? Next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz. Today, we look back at Jamal Murray's rookie year, compare it to Keyonte George's rookie year, and maybe take a deep breath and not worry about Keyonte George's struggles quite as much and look at Jamal Murray's path. We look, Denver Nuggets are in town, 15.5-point favorites. They are the best in the NBA and the Western Conference. What was their path to get here? It's actually pretty linear. It's pretty incredible. The Murray-Jokic combination, why they are so special in the clutch this year. They're even better, and how they got to be the number one combo in the NBA. Plus, it's a Trends Tuesday. I know it used to be a Trends Monday, but it's a Trends Tuesday today. So we're looking at all those things on today's edition of Locked on Jazz. As I mentioned, I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider, and this is Locked on Jazz. It's your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free. We are available on all podcasting apps. We're also free on YouTube. You can probably find us on Amazon Fire TV as well, which I'm loading up right now. And to the everydayers, you're the best. I've only got like 3 stickers left, and I've not reordered them, but I will try to remember to bring these 3 stickers to the game today. So whoever stops by, Ben Russell, our audio engineer, will be there for you. All right. Let's look at Jamal Murray for a moment and see if this can relieve us of some of the concerns that people are having about our guy Keyonte George and some of his shooting. So one thing you've heard me say is that if you go under 40% from the field and you go under 33% from 3 in your rookie year, the path to success gets slim. There aren't a lot of guys. Well, Jamal Murray was 40.4% from the field and 33.4% from 3. He came out of Kentucky, grew up in Canada, great story with his dad working him out all the time, and he came out of Kentucky where he did shoot it well. He shot 45% from the field and 41% from 3. And so he did have that track record, but he, similar to Keyonte, had a little bit of a tough rookie year. Keyonte is now down to 38.6 field goal percentage and 33% from 3. Pretty similar, really. And on the 16-17 Denver Nuggets, when Jamal Murray was a rookie, Jamal Murray played about 20 minutes a game. He started intermittently early and late, but not in the middle. So he didn't have anywhere near the burden that he had, that Keyonte's had on this team. And that 16-17 team was pretty good. Mike Malone was the head coach. They were good offensively. They're the 4th best offensive team. They were just bad defensively. And it was a team that had Danilo Gallinari and Gary Harris and Wilson Chandler and Will Barton and Nikola Jokic and Jameer Nelson. And they had Emmanuel Mudiay still and Jamal Murray. And by the way, this is actually what I think is one of the most important things when you look at the path of the Denver Nuggets is they drafted Jamal Murray when they already had Emmanuel Mudiay. They drafted Nikola Jokic when they already had Yusuf Nurkic. They did a bunch of, you know what, we're going to go see if we can find, just because we have a guy at that position doesn't mean there's not one better we can go find. And they drafted on top of people with great success. By Murray's second year, he started his 80 games in the 17-18 season, and he really began to show signs. He was voted 8th the most improved player. He shot 45%, 38% from 3. So it was a really, you knew quickly that there was an immediate turnaround and that there was legitimately something here. He was playing 32 minutes a night. And So from a Keyonte standpoint, where we look at Key and kind of some of his struggles right now, and Ben Anderson is of the Zone has pointed out, hey, it's ever since Jordan Clarkson went off the stop playing, and I've pointed out it's ever since Lauri Markkanen. Whatever it is in the last 17 games, it's just been a real challenge for Keyonte. You can stretch it back and you go to January 1st and the challenge still exists. So I don't want to be completely ignorant to that there were some struggles beforehand. If you can kind of decide where you want to choose with Keyonte right now. In his last 44 games, he's shooting 39.7 and 32.3. So, but if you really, that's a little unfair because you're going to take out that stretch when he played really well. But you do get into the stretch where post All-Star break, Jordan's not playing much. Keyonte's not playing much. You come back and he has the since the last 15 games when he's really had the burden, he's shooting 37% and 26% from three. That is drop, and he's playing 33 minutes a night. He's exhausted mentally and physically. He doesn't have anyone else to carry the load, and his numbers are plummeting because of it. So his rookie year experience is just much more difficult than what Jamal Murray had to do as a 19-year-old out of Kentucky. I do think there are some real similarities, though, in one, body size, and two, how they came into the league. Now, mentality-wise, I don't know enough about Keyonte yet. Jamal Murray's kind of mentality is pretty well documented on just kind of this relentless work ethic. His father kind of taking him through the tasks as a kid, and him, out at night in the Canadian cold and all the work and kind of insanity of it all. And when you look at Jamal Murray, this is something we're going to talk about a lot, but it takes a while to understand the pick and roll. So if we look at Jamal Murray and we look at him 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, then he misses the 2021 season. And then we have, wait a second, he might miss the 21-22 season. And then you look at his points per pick and roll. This is where we've talked about this before. I think you have to begin to understand what the burden is upon Keyonte. So if you look at Jamal Murray in his rookie year, his points per pick and roll on a good team was 0.94 points per chance. His next year was 0.94. His next year was 0.93. And what I've said is it seems to take about 3,000 to 5,000 pick and rolls before you get over 1 point per possession, which is a really high level pick and roll. Anything better than that. And that's exactly what it was for Jamal Murray. His fourth season as a pick and roll guard, playing when he started the year at 4,483 pick and rolls in his first 3 seasons of the year, and he averaged 0.93 points per pick and roll in his first 5,000 pick and rolls. He basically averaged 0.93, and then in the 1920 season, in his fourth season at 5,000 pick and rolls, he suddenly went to 1.0, 1.0, and then 1.0, 1.01, 1.01, 1.04, and this year's at 1.03 as a fairly dominating guard and maybe the best combination in the NBA. So when we look at Keyonte, the relevance to this is, first off, yes, you can have the year Keyonte's having to start the year. Certainly he's below some thresholds in Jamal Murray, but his burden's been much higher. And you have to look at Jamal Murray. And the first thing is we should see some signs next year. Jamal Murray turned it around pretty quickly to 32 minutes a night. They knew what they had. But, even his third year, he shoots just 44% from the field and 37% from three. And it's not until, frankly, in the bubble against Donovan that he really fully explodes in those great games in 2020. That he comes into his own, and then he's a totally different player. And they unfortunately tears his ACL in 2021, 22. So when you look at that, that's the first thing, is that, yes, I think you can. The second thing is it takes time. It takes 5,000 pick and rolls. Well, I'm going to do this study for you this summer. We'll keep talking about this. You'll hear this a lot. It's 5,000 pick and rolls for a guard to be able to come through this. How do you get to the level of Jokic and Murray? We'll talk about that. And the linear path that the Denver Nuggets have taken to get to be number one is a good model. They come in tonight a 15.5-point favorite against the Utah Jazz. That game will be on SiriusXM as well as on the Jazz app and on the Zone for you. We'll just getting started. We'll look at that combination of Murray and Jokic and the Nuggets linear, not Rocky, pure linear path to a championship that they took under Michael Malone. That's all coming up as we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. The Murdoch family, they've been in Utah for over 80 years, delivering the no-regrets service that's become the signature of the Murdochs, and the Hyundai car lineup, just absolutely fabulous. As you probably have heard by now, if you're an everydayer, I've purchased 3 of them in the 7 years in which Murdoch has been supporting this program. 2 Santa Fe's, 1 for each kid, and spoiled. And the Ioniq 5 for myself, that I have as the electric car. It's absolutely fabulous. Been overwhelmingly pleased with all of our choices. The Kona starts off the SUV lineup, and it works all the way up to the gorgeous Palisade, and then the Sonata and the Elantra are the sedans. I'm driving one of the Tucsons right now. They're just absolutely terrific in what they bring to the table. It is Murdoch Hyundai, located at 4646 South State Street, also located in Logan and in Linden. Go check it out today, and make sure you email me first at dlock09@gmail.com so we can get you that VIP experience. That's dlock09@gmail.com to get you that VIP experience. Today's show is also brought to you by LinkedIn. Small business owners know that LinkedIn is here for you because it's not just another job board. LinkedIn is a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it a better place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere. LinkedIn does all that while the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Okay. If you run a small business, I know, so many hats, so little time. So you're constantly trying to find someone. They even launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post a job for free. That's post a job for free at LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNBA. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Thanks so much for tuning in to Locked On Jazz today, making it your first listen. Greatly appreciate it. Are you watching ESPN or Fox in the background? They're yelling, they're screaming. It's time to make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, the first ever 24/7 national streaming channel on YouTube, as well as now on Amazon Fire TV. It's there for you right now. Matt Moore, David Ramil doing Locked On NBA, talking about can the Bucks recover? Who gets the 1 seed? Karl Anthony Towns returns. Billy Donovan possibly leaving Chicago for Kentucky. All sorts of great conversations going on Locked On NBA today, and they'll move from one major program to the next along the way with all the big news and big stories. I'm sure we'll see Locked On UConn there before it's done. Ooh, that game was tough. Ooh, thank goodness for the women's game this week. All right, let's get to it. Denver's path is, we hear all about the pain and the suffering. I'm actually a believer a little bit that the untalked about thing in this league is the scars that you get from losing and that teams don't recover from them. So if you look at Denver, Michael Malone becomes the head coach in 16-17 and realizes he has something with Jokic in 15-16. 16-17 is Jamal's rookie year. And Jamal plays the 9th most amount of minutes on the roster. He plays 82 games. He's 18 years old. He and Emmanuel Mudiay kind of split time, and it becomes clear that this is not Emmanuel Mudiay's team. And so the next year, they, led by Gary Harrison, Will Barton, and Jokic, now Murray is their 4th leading minutes player and up to 17 points a game. And they have Wilson Chandler and Paul Millsap, and their 2 best players are now 22-20 with some veteran players surrounding them. But those are, and Mudiay suddenly starts to go down, and they've made an unfortunate trade where they just trade Donovan Mitchell to the Utah Jazz, which is good for us, but bad for them. So 17-18, they win 46 games, and they don't make the playoffs. And there's a lot of talk in the history of the Nuggets that they actually look back at this year. They played the 82nd game of the year against the Minnesota Timberwolves to make the playoffs, and they lose in overtime. And in many ways, they believe that's their moment that seals them to become this team. The next year, they vault up to 54 wins. So this is now Jamal Murray's 3rd year. Jokic is now in, I think, his 4th or 5th year. They're becoming a true combination And they jump to 54 wins. So they go from 33 in Jokic's first year. Jamal's year is 40. Then they go to 46. Then they go to 54 wins, and they win their first playoff series with a commanding Game 7 win against the San Antonio Spurs before losing in Game 7 of the Western Conference semifinals to the Portland Trailblazers. So they're on their road at that point, and they've now, Jamal Murray is the team. He's played their most minutes. Jokic, their second. Harris, Barton, Millsap, Morris, Beasley. They're kind of fiddling with pieces. Mutier's long gone. Now they end up trading everyone by the time it's done. The next year is the bubble, and they come back to beat the Jazz, in which is the series you just wonder, like, had Mike Conley's shot gone in, had the Jazz been able to close that series out if George Hill and the Bucks hadn't protested and not stop the bubble for a day? They also come from behind, give them credit, they also come from behind against the LA Clippers in the next series, and they go to the Western Conference Finals. So it's very linear, right? They lose game 82, they get to the playoffs, they win a series, they lose in the second round, they take one more step and get to the Western Conference Finals. They're on a very, very linear path to who they are as a basketball team at this point. And their roster is now Will Barton, Jamal Murray, Nikola Jokic, Gary Harris, and Jeremy Grant kind of gets added in. And then in 2021, Jamal Murray gets hurt. And this is where I think 48 games in the season, they're rolling, and Jamal Murray gets hurt. And they were probably the best, arguably the best team in the league. They had just traded for Aaron Gordon. They were rolling. They were about 15 games above 500 or so. And Jamal Murray goes down with that horrific torn ACL. They actually find a way to win a playoff series, and they get swept by Phoenix in the next round. In the 21-22 season, Jamal Murray just never plays. Jokic is so great, they still win 48 games, and they lose in the first round. And this is where I think people miss the route of the Denver Nuggets to the championship. As they talk about these 2 years, they shouldn't be talked about. Jamal Murray's not there. I mean, Jokic proves how great he is at this point because they have the sixth best offense in the NBA, and they don't have Jamal Murray. So that, to me, is like, if you ever wanted to know when Jokic became Jokic, that's it. Because his second best player on this team is Will Barton. And Aaron Gordon's probably right in there also. And I mean, and they're still the sixth best offense in the NBA. But the fact is, that's not a linear progression. The linear progression is that if you actually go back and look at the Nuggets franchise with Jamal Murray, so they lose that game 82 to Minnesota. The next year they win their first playoff series, lose in the second round. The next year they come back to beat the Jazz and the Clippers, and they go to the conference finals. The next time they're all together again for the playoffs, they go to the finals. Like, I think what's super important about this team is it has no scars. The Jazz had those terrible playoff scars and frankly never overcame them. The Phoenix Suns had playoff scars and never overcame them under Chris Paul. The LA Clippers had playoff scars with Chris Paul and never overcame them. Everyone talks about how you have to do what Boston did, where they lost to Chicago a bunch of times, or Detroit and broke through, or whatever it was. Detroit had to beat Boston to break through, and then Chicago had to, maybe in that era. But in this era, I think it's the opposite. I think it's the scar. You end up with the scars, and it's a problem. It's where, frankly, I think the Rudy Gobert trade by Minnesota was brilliant because they were beginning to get some scars. Where the Kristaps Porzingis trade by Brad Stevens was brilliant. And Drew Holiday, it changed who that team is. It's not the same team. You're not looking at the locker room thinking it's the same team. The scars, to me, in this league are as big a deal as anything else. And that when you suddenly see the teams that have, Miami doesn't really have the scars, right? They've been to the finals now. Maybe they're beginning to show signs of the fact that they lost in the finals. They've lost some things, and they don't seem to be quite right. Golden State has held this thing together, obviously. But if you kind of look back at Golden State in their championship run, they didn't have scars. They didn't have scars either, right? They're Mark Jackson's their head coach. They go to the conference semifinals, their first time in the playoffs. They go from 23 wins to 47 because Steph takes off. They win their first playoff series. They lose their second. The next year, they lose in the first round. They fire Mark Jackson, and then they go to the NBA Finals. And they haven't lost a playoff series until last year other than the NBA Finals. They have no scars. So one of the things I think that's most important about that path is it's scarless. And that's where I think this gets super tricky. And I don't know how you build a scarless path, but it is worth doing. It's also why I think you have to shake teams up. Like if we look back at the Jazz in retrospect, the one thing I would say on the Quinn Snyder era of the Jazz is we just may have ridden Joe Ingles, Royce O'Neal, Derek Favors, these guys we liked so much too long because they were all part of the scars. And you had to do something the way Boston has with Kristaps Porzingis and Drew Holiday. It just dramatically changes the team. Milwaukee has a title and then some bad playoff losses. It's going to be interesting to see because right now it doesn't feel good there. Now, I think Chris Middleton's injuries are making it a problem, and Doc Rivers doesn't seem to have a grasp on what that team is, and there's all sorts of issues going on there. We'll see when they get to the playoffs what happens. But it's an interesting concept. All right. How much have Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic played together to become this awesome? It's amazing. And we'll have it for you next, and then we will check on Trends Tuesday as well. It's all coming up on today's edition of Locked On Jazz. Today's edition is brought to you by GameTime. Love my GameTime. Matt Moore, who's actually on my big screen right now, tells a great story that he and his wife are in Colorado, are huge Avalanche fans. And they'll literally sit at their house with their GameTime app and just watch the prices. And if the prices get to the right number, they go to a game. And if they don't, they don't. And they just monitor. I tried it when I was in Denver. They were playing a rival on a Friday night, and I never got the prices down to the number I wanted to. But that's why the GameTime app is so great. And with the code LOCKEDONNBA, you can get $20 off on GameTime right now. Here's some of the reasons why GameTime is so super. First of all, if you're looking to go to a Major League Baseball game or any other big-time event, they are there for you right now. You can customize your spot through the app to what you want. You can get last-minute deals, flash deals, zone deals, what I was just talking about. Easy to find and buy MLB tickets for every kind of event or anywhere. So if you're heading to go see a game in Seattle, going to see a game in San Diego, going to see a game in LA, you can use GameTime to get that done. Easy. You get a view from all your seats, and you get lowest price, guaranteed events cancellation protection, and job loss protection. A ton of the Locked On hosts use it all the time. They were talking the other day, like they cannot. The lowest price protection is so real. 100% different, 110% difference if you find something lower, and none of them have been able to find a ticket lower than GameTime. One of them was commenting that the GameTime app is so great because I don't have to worry about, I don't have to check 4 different apps to see what the best price is when I know GameTime always has it. So use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create your account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute ticket deals, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day. Jazz Nuggets tonight. Ron and I will be on the call. We've nursed Ron back to health and look forward to having you with us. Please join us. We still have a great time every single night. All right. So since Jamal Murray came in the league in 2016, the most pick and rolls in the NBA have been run by Trae Young and Clint Capella, 3,120. The second most amount of pick and rolls in that time period are Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton. It's kind of funny. Back to 3,112. The third most are Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. 2,398 pick and rolls run between the two of them. 2,398 on their second pick and roll of the night will be their 2,400th pick and roll together of their careers. So not only does Jamal Murray need to run 5,000 in his career, but he's run 2,500 almost with Jamal Murray. Interesting. I just thought this was worth noting. The number 3 is Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert at 2,308. I thought this was actually a super interesting list. Darius Garland, Jared Allen is 5. De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis is 6. And then a bunch of Chicago Bulls. Of the group that has run over 1,000 pick and rolls together. These groupings are not all together, but this is since Jamal Murray came into the league. So those that have run 1,000 pick and rolls together. The number one combination is Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner. So I thought I was surprised by that, but that's tells you at what level Indiana's functioning right now in the league's offense. Steph and Kayvon Looney, Steph and Draymond Green are 2 and 3. So it's funny. You don't think they run a lot of pick and roll, but they have run at least 1,000. Luka and Dwight Powell, Dame Lillard and Yusuf Nurkic, James Harden and Joel Embiid, and then Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are the 7th best out of the 40 groups that have run 1,000 pick and rolls together. There's 40 groupings. The worst, by the way, is DeJounte Murray and Clint Capella, and then Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun, if you're wondering. And Darius Garland and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley are 2 of the worst as well. So that's kind of an interesting little note that they've actually run that many. So just kind of an interesting note. All right, well, that's their pick and rolls. So there's got, but wait a sec. What they actually run most of the time is handoffs. And Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic have run 1,016 or 62 handoffs. 1,162 handoffs. There are only 30 people that have run 245 or more. There's actually only 26 that have run 250. And they've run 1,162. So you take their pick and roll combination and their handoffs, and they have combined to run 3,560 combinations together. When Keyonte George rolls into a pick and roll with Omer Yurtseven tonight, they're going to be on like their 19th. 3,560 pick and rolls or handoffs together. And then if you want to get into it, like I don't even know where the breaking point is because they've run so many more than anyone else. But if we decide it's 250, as I just said, so there's only 28 groups that have actually run that money. The number one is actually Darius Garland and Jared Allen, which is super interesting how much better they are in pick and roll. But the Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are the 6th best. Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Seth Curry, Ben Simmons, surprising, and Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle, Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner. Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, 2-man game, NBA playoffs could be really interesting to watch, by the way. That's kind of those that have run it the most, Malcolm Brogdon with Sabonis was the worst. Mikal Bridges with Nick Claxton's not great. RJ Barrett with Jalen Brunson wasn't great. But there's the difference. At this point, and where does it show up? I don't know if I got my numbers printed out or not. But in clutch time this year, the Denver Nuggets in the clutch this year are 26 and 13. I mean, they are just so far and away the best team in the league in clutch, 26 and 13. Because Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are just masters together. Absolute 100% masters. All right, quickly, trend. We like to do trends. So let's take a look at our trends. Last 2 weeks, we'll do last 10 games and last 2 weeks of teams and see where they look, what they look at right now and how they look. The number one offense in the last 10 games, the Boston Celtics. Followed by the Indiana Pacers, the New York Knicks, the LA Clippers, the Denver Nuggets for the last 10 games, and the Atlanta Hawks. The teams that can't score right now are Detroit, Portland, Toronto, Memphis, Washington, San Antonio. None of the bottom teams are not surprising. Number one defense in the NBA the last 10 games is the Dallas Mavericks, followed by the Minnesota Timberwolves, Miami Heat, Orlando Magic, Golden State Warriors, Denver Nuggets. Nuggets have clicked in. Charlotte is the worst defense in the NBA the last 10 games. We're 29th. Toronto 28th. Cleveland 27th. Interesting on Cleveland. Houston and Oklahoma City slides in there at 25th. Best overall team. Dallas, Boston, Dallas, Minnesota, Miami, Denver, New York. In the bottom, Toronto, Utah, Detroit, Charlotte, and Portland. And over the last 2 weeks, pushed a button wrong. Over the last 2 weeks, dun, 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 exciting. The number one team in the NBA, Boston, followed by Dallas, Minnesota, Golden State, Minnesota. Or wait a sec. Dallas, Miami, Golden State, Minnesota, and Indiana. Top offense, New York, Boston, Indiana, Miami, Philadelphia, Joel Beck. and Dallas. Bottom offenses, Portland, Detroit, Memphis, Washington, and Utah. Best defense, Minnesota, Dallas, Golden State, Miami, Orlando, Denver. So Denver has totally clicked in. And Toronto, Cleveland, Charlotte, Utah, 27th defensively. Houston and Oklahoma City. Interesting to see OKC in there. That is Locked On Jazz today. Thanks very much. We'll be back with you tomorrow, postcast after the game. We now send you the first ever 24/7 national streaming channel. It's called Locked On Sports Today. If you're on YouTube, if not, go grab it on YouTube or on Amazon Fire TV.